What is that?
I got a Cuphead costume from the dollar store, but really, I'm actually a visionary. Oh, what a spooky episode.
This is a spooky episode. I was like, I'll hit record ahead of time so I can get the reaction shot. And then I was like, what reaction? Our faces are covered.
Yeah, just the lack of reaction face. Or actually, let's see. Smile, not smile.
Can you see?
Oh, yeah. Can you see?
Well, I can't read for sure. I can.
So nothing's changed.
So nothing's changed. I can't. I can navigate around just fine. I can see you. I have to look pretty hard to be able to navigate even like the buttons to push. And
did you have someone zip you up?
No, I just did it myself. I have a couple.
Damn.
I have a couple inches in the back that aren't zipped, but that's just, it's part of the magic of television.
Yeah. I can't read either, and it took me 10 extra minutes to click on the right things.
Okay. Well, then that clarifies our options, because if you could read, I would potentially have you read things, but that's fine. We don't need to read anything at all.
Let's see. Maybe I can at a very large scale.
Nah,
let's see.
It's not worth it. The other thing is,
I went to go type something and then I realized, oh, right, the keyboard has small letters. And even though I've been using this for 2 decades or more,
I was having trouble
work.
typing as well. And then you can't use your phone with gloves, apparently.
Nope.
And
yeah, it's the worst feeling costume. I'm trying to think of, I mean, big clunky ones if you were a transformer or something would suck, but this is a different level of suck. It's kind of fun how much it sucks.
Yeah, it's definitely, I mean, you wouldn't want to wear it to a party. Because
of course I would.
Well, this is a party. I mean, I like the way that it looks. It looks great. It looks fantastic, for sure. But this is, it's like, I just watched that documentary about Val Kilmer, and there's a section when he got to be Batman, and he's like, oh, everyone wants to be Batman every boy wants to be a Batman when they grow up. And then he had to wear the costume and couldn't breathe and like could never move and wasn't doing anything. And he's just like a half of a face and that's it. And he'd just be like standing in places. He's like, oh, yeah, you want to be Batman. You don't want to dress up and act as Batman.
Or any type of acting. I mean, I've never done any giant scale acting stuff outside of little commercials, but imagine filming a movie and having to read that same line 10 times or 15 times and then just doing that for, basically you have to act the whole movie dozens of times.
Well, you're wearing something that makes you itch a bunch.
Yeah.
Like this is, I wonder how long it will be until my entire body just itches horribly, because I'm already like, it's definitely a thing. Because so I was, we'll just consider this all part of the show. We'll see. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Mind Under Matter. This is a special Halloween episode. I'm your void, Shane Mauss. Joining me is the visionary Ramin Nazer, if you're wondering why why we're wearing these right now, you'll have to go to Patreon to see the characters in the world that we've built there. And Ramin's nodding yes dramatically, so I can see him responding.
It kind of gives you more freedom to use your body in like dancey ways that you wouldn't otherwise, because it's like, I'm not Ramin under here, I'm Dave Waite under here. I think Derek Chauvin was innocent. I think that the Trump should do 18 more years. You can just hold whatever opinions you want behind the Morph Suit.
This would be I tried it on last night when I got it, and then it was at night, and there was blind. I mean, yours is at least like, that's definitely a costume. Mine is like maybe a robber. That might be someone robbing a house, because I had all the blinds open and stuff, the lights. I was like, oh yeah, I probably shouldn't have neighbors see me in this thing.
Yeah, it is pretty terrifying when you're not the one in it. Is my mic crackling up to you?
Nope.
Okay, good.
No, you sound good. Yeah, so we thought we'd do we might do 2 Halloween episodes. We might do, so there's this really cool morbid curiosity scale with a bunch of survey questions there's just like 24 of them. They're all really fun. And there's a bunch of, I just got done doing some Here We Ares about some of the psychology of that stuff, and I thought that would be fun to talk about and do for an episode. It requires the ability to read, so we'd either need to be in a different outfit for another episode and do that, or have McCool read them to us, like as from the producer role in here, but that seems like a pain. So maybe we'll do another goofy Halloween costume day, because there's plenty to say about Halloween. I think I've been looking into it a little bit. I've had I had one episode on witchcraft, but I'm really interested in kind of some of the evolution of how some of these cultures and practices and traditions emerge. And I rather hastily also researched some of the origins of Halloween and witchcraft and some of that stuff. And
who started it?
I mean,
who's John Halloween?
There was a Jack-o'-lantern, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No, there wasn't.
Yeah, there was. There was a Jack-o'-lantern. What was his deal? Was he like a murderer or something like that? He was like a... Oh, man.
And his last name was O'Lantern, like an Irish lantern?
Well, Halloween started as a Celtic... it seems to be the consensus that it was some sort of a Celtic tradition.
Is it Celtic or Celtic? I guess it's Celtics because the basketball team.
You're right. It's Celtic.
But then why are they called the Celtics?
Yeah, that's.
Or are they? They are when you think about it. The Boston Celtics.
Yeah,
you don't
Celtic,
think the Boston Celtics. Yeah.
Yeah, but they say like Celtic pride, right? Yeah.
Think so. I don't know.
I know.
Tomato.
Yeah. So and then it got blended along the way. But I think it was I think Rome kind of, as they were taking over places, and then Christianity became more dominant in Rome. They had at first, when they first went, they're like, all right, as long as we can take over all of your territory, we'll let you keep your silly traditions. And then over time, they're like, yeah, no, you can't do that anymore. That's evil, and that's not what Jesus is into. And it got super dark. I didn't even know I was gonna start out with light banter, but now I guess we're just into it because I was going to ask you just general.
It's tough to communicate, huh? Because we don't have our facial cues and stuff to rely on, so it's like this very creepy. Like, I will interject at whatever time, regardless of facial cues.
I will just have to raise our weird hands. These suits are awesome. First of all, before we get into all that, we'll do the light banter section of the show because first off, are you into Halloween generally?
Yeah, even though I haven't done shit for it in like a decade, but I love the feeling of it, if that makes sense. I love looking outside and seeing everybody dressed up differently, and I love Limonoid events. Have we talked about Limonoid events?
No.
So a Limonoid event is where like all the roles are reversed for a day. Like the children have power instead of the adults. You're dressing as a gender different than you identify with, or like a person you're different than. Another example is Burning Man is a Limonoid event. Everything is different. All the rules change. Santa Rampage is what it's called, I think, when everyone dresses as Santa and they're only referred to as Santa. Yeah, I forget where the term Limonoid event came from. But
what was the Santa one? I was enjoying all of that. I was thinking about all of the different events, and then I think I couldn't comprehend what there's an event where everyone dresses as Santa.
Yeah, it's in New York. I think it's expanded outside of New York now, but everyone only gets referred to as Santa, and they all dress as Santa, and then they go ride the subway, and I don't know what they do, if they sing carols or cause mischief. I should look that up. It might even be mischief. But I think it's all in good fun. I don't think it's like actual vandalism or assault, but just being silly.
New York City did they go big with things. They have the biggest Halloween parade in the world, and it's a massive event each year. But there's a little bit so trick-or-treating was a thing where so Halloween was around this time. It was like originally kind of around November 1st. It was differing in areas, but that was when everything was dying, autumn and the leaves are dying. And winter used to be like a life or death situation back then, and people had to have like X amount of food stored and everything else. That's what's really interesting to me is there's always like some sort of, I was thinking about the idea of sacrifice, because they would sacrifice, they would leave out offering like on their step for the dead to come back, or their dead relatives or whatever, or just demons to satiate them. There's different reasons for doing it, but they they would do that. But it's like, it's such a strange. There's all of these various practices where you sacrifice something when you need it most, which I guess is the point of sacrifice.
Cookies and milk.
Yeah.
Tooth fairy. Or actually, that one doesn't count. What's another one with sacrifice, though? But I really like the idea of it started out with demons and ghouls, and now it's kids dressing up as demons and ghouls and saying trick or treat. And then before, there used to actually be a trick part where if they didn't have candy, you would egg their house, or you would break windows with bricks, I think, something like that, right?
Yeah.
It was a more serious thing. So you were really threatening them, give us candied apples, or we'll throw this brick through your window. And now we'll just flick you off or something if you give us bad candy.
Yeah, it was like a class thing too, because it would be poor kids. At a stage of it, it was poor kids that would go around to wealthier people's houses, and they would offer to pray for dead people, which my guess is some of those kids mailed it in, mailed in the prayer for the dead person. Because they just wanted the money or food or whatever. There's
please save this rich asshole's son. I guess.
But there's, I like to think, because originally, so there's some weird stuff that happened. So for a while, there was a period of time, kind of even before that, where people started fooling around with dressing up like the dead. First off, they were scared of dead people because ghost grave robbers would discover that someone would go and dig up a grave to get like whatever valuables or whatever out of it that the person would be buried with. And they didn't understand decomposition and stuff. So they would open this thing up and there's like worms coming out of someone's eyes, and they're bloated and they're like covered in maggots and stuff. So they thought that they were still like alive. There's also just because of like gas and air and stuff getting trapped, corpses can still like moan and stuff. So they were like scared of the dead coming back, and it was, because it's clearly at some point in evolutionary history, every animal starts with being pretty familiar with death, because you're seeing something else die and everything else. But I guess, early on, once humans started having these traditions and burying the dead, and I guess they were kind of detached from the process or whatever. It's just no one had seen an exhumed body before, and then this grave robbing stuff took off, and I think that's some of the origins of like zombie and ghost stuff. I mean, there was ghost stuff long before. Oh, the
first zombie is just trapped gas, huh?
Yeah. And so then people would start dressing up like the dead to fit in, like they do in Walking Dead sometimes, like when they cover themselves in the zombie guts and whatnot. And like that was a real thing people would do, to be like, oh, this is when all the dead come back, and so we'll dress up. And I guess, and fire was always like ritualized. So fire, the great thing about like magical thinking is that it just like suits whatever your need is. So fire or candles or whatever, they were like a lighthouse for any of their dead relatives to come back and visit, so they could find their way back. But any demons out there, it would keep the demons away. So it was like fire was the
two birds, one to attract, one to hit the bird.
Yeah, very versatile stuff, fire. Which also, fire must have just been, fire just must have been such an incredibly important aspect of everyone's life.
It was everything. It was the original electricity. Yeah, it covered electricity's role, and then electricity came, so they're like, okay, I'll take care of some of that stuff. But it was all fire, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And then, steam is fire-based. Marshmallows are fire-based. Lanterns.
Yeah.
Not marshmallows, but, when you cook them.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I like to think. So then it was around this time that people started, I guess, so they would leave out, I forget whatever they call it. There's hot cross buns are like actual like cross, put in the
I've never even seen one. I've sang the song, but I've never even seen one of those foods in my life.
I know.
Like a hot cake. I don't know if I've ever had a hot cake.
Yeah, they would leave stuff like that out. So it was just, trick-or-treating has been upgraded by a lot. But back at that time, it was like if you got a muffin or whatever, it was like, wow, that's a real get. If you're a poor kid on Halloween. And so
I wonder if there's still bad candy. Like when I was growing up, sometimes people would just pour candy corn with no wrapping. Not a good house. Most of them had fun-sized Snickers and the likes and that kind of thing. But sometimes it would just be like, here you go. And they're like, what am I going to do with this candy corn on the like dry, or a candy apple, and you had to walk around like an idiot with the candy apple.
Yeah. And a caramel, I feel like a caramel apple once a year is appropriate. But
if you have someone to share it with, yeah. You and a few friends. It's too much.
It is too much.
And it's weird where you're like, it's like the apple, you're not causing trouble, but the caramel and the candy on the outside, it's just too much. You're not supposed to eat that much.
Yeah.
Like candy.
Yeah. Well, that was another, that tradition goes back too, because I think the Romans brought in apple. So culture started blending, and apples were really valued because apples for a long time, you didn't want to eat an apple, like a crab apple or whatever. They would ferment apples and things and drink the alcohol, but they weren't like apples that you'd get at a grocery store. Didn't really exist. And when they started existing,
too seedy.
They were like smaller, like crab apples. I think like nothing. There was nothing that looked like a golden delicious apple.
No big juicy GMO apples.
No. Yeah, and
so this might be too big of a rabbit hole to go down, but just I wonder how big it could have gotten without tampering.
The apple?
I guess it would have just stayed. Yeah, because it needs to be tampered because it's not supposed to have that much stuff around the seed. The seed should just be.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't. I don't think it takes that long for just a little bit of selection pressure to take off when there's. I don't think it's just humans doing. I think that if some bird that carries the seed for a tree or whatever, if that tree benefits from putting a little extra energy into it so it's easier to spot or juicier or sweeter or whatever else, there can be selection pressure for larger and larger berries or whatever else.
Forgot about the birds. Got to remember the birds.
Humans just speed all that shit up because we just have a better eye for that stuff and figured out agriculture and everything else. But so apples were like this real delight at a certain time, and bobbing for apples was. So there's a lot of death stuff attached to Halloween, but then there was also marriage stuff too. There was a lot of marriage superstitions, like you would peel an apple and throw the skin behind you, and whatever letter it most closely resembled was the first letter of your future husband's name. And bobbing for apples.
You will be wearing Xylophone Johnson.
It was also bobbing for apples was like, if you won, like females would bob for apples, and then like if you got the apple, you would be the next person to marry, like catching the bouquet or whatever. And sometimes they put them under pillows too, like the tooth fairy, and whatever guy you dreamt of that night, that would be your future husband. And
oh no, but also yes, but just that you can't control that.
You can. It's funny because like when it comes to marriage rituals, it's very like playful, and no one takes it like too super seriously and a lot of stuff like that. But if bobbing for apples was like how dudes got mates, if it was like for pussy, that would be a fucking bloodbath. Like dudes would be training all year round, just practicing their apple bobbing.
I don't even think I've bobbed for apples before. I think it was one of those things
for an apple?
I think I saw it on cartoons and it just never happened in real life.
Oh man,
because I'm not going to organize it.
Yeah, no.
You have to end up at a school event. Yeah, and it just doesn't happen.
Yeah, so you're out of you got to be like somewhere between 5 and 9 years old normally. So you might have missed.
Like, are you blindfolded? You just stick your head in, or the apples have sunk. Because don't the apples float?
I think I have one memory of doing it in a friend's garage that they like made up like a little haunted housey sort of thing. And I don't quite remember how it went or what the rules were or if there was a timing thing or whatever, but I think it's not the easiest thing in the world to just bob and get a big enough, if it's a big enough apple. It's kind of hard to if it's dipping down in the water, but yeah, if there was enough like sexual selection pressure on that, we'd probably start evolving like bigger teeth or it'd probably be dudes would be like biting each other. Maybe you'd have like thick skin like elephant seals or something for that. Or beavers have I told you about the animal beavers? They're
the animal beaver. The beaver, the animal. Gotcha.
Yeah. They have so they have evolved. They have seals in their ears.
Seals
like
to keep coverings,
that close to keep water out, so they don't ever get like water in their ears like we do. And then they have transparent a third transparent eyelid so that they can have their eyes closed but see through it underwater. And then
that's cool. We got gypped, or I mean, we got gypsied out of money.
There's that was a smooth correction. Let me rectify that situation. So they have so beavers, but the most amazing thing related to that is that beavers are able to hold things in their teeth, like sticks and stuff, underwater without getting water, like in their mouth and throat and stuff. You want to take a guess at what evolutionary superpower they evolved? It's bizarre, I'll say that.
I know it's going to be a sexual thing.
It's not a sexual thing. It's just a way of keeping stuff out of their water out of their mouth.
Throwing up, bulimia?
No, they have. So how do you keep water out of your mouth? Like underwater.
Oh, I mean, by closing your mouth?
Yes. How do you keep? So how do you bite something and do that?
You exhale?
They have lips behind their teeth.
Oh,
amazing.
Teeth in front of lips and then more lips?
Double lips.
An airlock. It's like an airlock of the spaceship where the teeth are the person and like it's got one layer in between.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. That's a weird one, but I'll still take it if it comes with the whole package.
Yeah, well, they weave and stuff underwater, and they're amazing.
And their
creatures.
Teeth keep growing forever unless they bite stuff, right?
I believe so, actually. Yeah, they like whittle down on wood and stuff, so they keep on growing. Much like
beavers are pretty cool, and they're very warlike too, I think. Now I'm just making stuff up. That as I said that, I'm like, oh, you don't know that. You just think you know that.
I doubt they're that warlike. I mean, maybe I wonder if they're aggressive and territorial. Well, I would think that a dam would be a pretty important resource. They do like inherit dams from their parents and stuff, and
didn't know that.
Yeah, there's. But
I mean, is it really inheriting, or is it just they're there and their parents died because beavers only live for so long?
Well, they spread out a little bit, and then they'll get the territory back when their parents die. They'll take their dam back or whatever. But that big tail, it's mostly to store fat, which I guess is really delicious. That was like one of Lewis and Clark's favorite meals when they were exploring the region, was some.
I thought they just liked it for their hat.
I guess it's.
Oh no, that's a raccoon hat.
That's and that might be Davy Crockett that you're thinking of as well.
Probably.
But I guess it's like a buttery kind of meat, and but it's the main function too is it slaps the. So I go stand up paddleboarding, and they're a skittish creature, because if I see a beaver, I can't get within like About the closest I've ever gotten is like maybe 30 feet, and that's rare. But you usually see them, if you're lucky enough to see them, you see them from quite a distance, and then they just slap their tail as a warning sign and be like, "Hey, I see you. You don't have the element of surprise on me." And
but what's the threat after that?
Then they just it's just a loud sound, I guess.
Oh, so it's basically a bluff, right? Yeah. Maybe a beaver could kill me, but I just feel like I would have the upper hand.
Yeah, I think that there are issues with some rabid beavers out there. Like, people can get bit by a rabid beaver. But so, I wouldn't intentionally fight a beaver, but
No, I wouldn't want to. I wouldn't even want to eat the tail. Like, maybe I would.
I'd try beaver tail. Because
yeah, I guess if you're getting it, I'm gonna try it.
They also
it's just sitting there on the table.
They had beavers used to be like the size of bears too, and they didn't have the tail back then because they didn't need a tail to scare anything off with, because they were the size of fucking bears. You definitely wouldn't fight one of those beavers.
Like mammoth back in the mammoth days, or how long ago?
I don't even think it was that long ago, but yeah, maybe. Let's just say mammoth, since I can't do any research. I can't look anything up because I can't read right now. But anyway, that would be, I always, whenever something has a cool superpower, like, oh, they could second part set of lips or something. It's like, well, what pressures drove that? And maybe if there was enough sexual selection for humans in the bobbing apple thing, we could eventually evolve. It would take like thousands of years minimum, probably a million years, but we could eventually
Plus,
evolve.
those days are over now. I think we're much more likely to just we're just going to, not it's over in that it's not going to happen, but I mean, it's never going to happen the long way.
Yeah.
I think it's all going to be like, we see this genetic, and like, which genetics would you like your children to have? Would you like lips behind their teeth? Or would you just like to go for the ears that close off? And they're like, well, Sharon wants us to grow up with a full beaver child because her mother always loved beavers. Rest her soul. But I always wanted a half human, half beaver kid.
Yeah, I like going into the designer baby office, and they're like, do you want lips behind their teeth or ear seals? Like, I was thinking like intelligence, like maybe high cheekbones, athletic. Well, I'm offering double lips.
Actually, intelligence is no longer valued. Intelligence is actually a cause of a lot of depression, we found out. And all you really need is Google nowadays. So we no longer care about intelligence. I'm speaking as the parent from that future thing. And I just wanted to clarify, I'm aware that there are supply chain issues, and like we could have a whole collapse, and like we don't get designer modded genes, but
were you worried we were gonna get an angry message on that one?
Like, which one? Not actually, no, I don't think I was coming from a place of that. Sorry. Although I do come from a place of that all the time. But this was just one of those ones where I didn't. But I was just going to say that it's either going to, like I've said a billion times already, but it's either all going to collapse or it's going to hyper accelerate into the new modding genes, multiverse upon multiverse upon multiverse craziness.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, I don't know where I stand on that one. I think I'd lean. Is this just wish thinking that I lean a little more toward? I think we're going to be doing the modifying genes stuff. I think that I think so too. Yeah.
I don't think it's all going to fall apart in our lifetime, but if it does, there won't be this clip of me saying that it won't.
Yeah.
Like if everything goes away, like Google goes down, there's a solar flare, a big electromagnetic shockwave that like destroys all the bank records, and it's just chaos and Mad Max outside. There's not going to be this clip of me saying this stuff. So I got to like triple down on hyper technological modded gene future.
That's that. Unless all of this is stored in hard drives and stuff, and in a bunker somewhere, and then like the whatever new things evolve that understand that those forms of technologies or aliens come and find the planet and search through the ruins and then find this, and then this is what I hope this is one of the first clips that they pull up. Is like, who were these? What were these things?
Yeah, they slipped our whole like records. We thought we had every sort of being, but they seem like moderately intelligent for these
and they called
anthropoid apes. They called what was going to happen.
The guys that called it. It's just a picture of us right now.
But I don't hear it enough, and maybe I'm not tuning into the right people, but I feel like there's so much doom and gloom talk, and rightfully so, but it's fun to occupy that other space too.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I go back and forth. I mean, I think that there's like it feels, I mean, I feel like it would be hard for me to have had as many conversations with as many different scientists that I've had and not feel like a little like, oh, I think it is. Yeah, I think this is the next great extinction right around the corner. And then at the other hand, be like, oh no, innovation is crazy. Like, we'll figure it out. We'll fix it. But it's also like science hasn't done a great job of innovating like human will, you know? It's
in what way?
Well, it's you know, it's got like technology and medicine and stuff like that covered so well, but
Oh, you mean the way we still keep self-sabotaging and like you can't do the simplest thing?
Yeah.
Like we can't override our most, what is it called? The irreducible rascality of humankind.
Yeah.
Like, just no matter how you try, you're still like this rascal. You're like, I fucked up again. I'm a stupid idiot.
Yeah. And it's just like, it's not, there's definitely plenty of fields of research on how to do better science communication and how to influence the positive behavior and create better science-based policy and stuff, but I don't see that
more clip art of
happening.
Beakers. Yeah, what if the answer is just more photos of beakers in the learn no graphics, in the infographics? It's like just you put a beaker next to every point and then something about it triggers to the brain like this is legit science, and then you take it in.
I mean, I will say that I feel like, you know, doing a bit of thinking about and looking into some witchcraft stuff, it does, there's aspects of me that makes me think like, oh, we've come a long ways, but there's still areas today that are like, first off, a lot of witchcraft didn't start as some negative thing. Most of the problems with witchcraft were always some like major organized religion's problems with the idea of witchcraft. That was the only thing that was like ever truly evil. That was, it was, but
I love witchcraft.
Well, a lot of it was just early medicine. And alchemy and stuff was just like alchemy was just early chemistry, and they would hide, because the recipes and the procedures for making metal and stuff for swords was incredibly valuable. You were absolutely one of the most important aspects of some kingdoms' military was the ability to make better iron and suits and that sort of thing. And so they would hide, so alchemists were quite wealthy and treated really well, so they kept a lot of their stuff secret. So they would communicate through codes which sounded like spells, or they would something would need to cool for 2 minutes or whatever, and instead of saying that, they'd be like, and then you say this spell, and it's just how this poem took 2 minutes to read. That's actually what the magic was.
And now we're back in that world in a way. Like when we communicate with our devices, we're kind of casting spells in that way. Like you can cast a spell on Twitter that can like really cause a lot of trouble, or cause a lot of
you can curse a lot of people's day. You can curse your own day easily.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Easily. I've cursed so many of my own days on Twitter. It's amazing. But there's what is it, Indonesia? Shoot, I forget. I had this guest Manvir Sai, this anthropologist, on. I think it was like around last December. Yeah,
last name is Sai.
Singh, I want to say.
And Singh?
Singh, yeah, Manvir
Indian,
Singh.
right?
Yeah.
Or you said Indonesia. Okay.
What's the?
Maybe it's also pronounced Sai. Sometimes there's different.
I forget where he was from, but I think the people that is Indonesia between Australia and Asia. It doesn't matter.
I would guess yes, but I'm not that good at geography in the States or in Canada. Actually, my Canadian is pretty good because the days in which I had to study geography, I was in Canada.
Well,
so I don't know all the other ones.
Regardless,
I'd get like a 60, I bet. If I had to take the world geography test, I'd get 100 because just the sphere with a little bit of wobble.
Yeah,
but the geography, I would get 60 probably.
Oh, I don't think I would do anywhere near that well on geography. Geometry, I'd be okay. But
South America would actually cost me a lot of points. I'd be like Brazil, and then
yeah, no, I would do terribly. But I don't know if I shared this on here before. But he had this. You might have heard me talking about it when I was on Duncan's show. But
the last one, hummingbird one.
I think maybe I talked about it then. I'm not sure though. But there's these people that Manvir studies that they use witchcraft for settle like court disputes, basically. Like nice. Instead of a judge, it's like a sorcerer, and then two, as a healer. And so one of the things that really grabbed my attention was people will get this waterborne virus and they'll get sick, and then the local witch or whatever will come to heal them, and it's usually the same thing. So there's this myth of this like ghost alligator that comes in through the faucet that makes you sick at night if you haven't been behaving properly, and this and that. So there's always like agency or a reason, it's you need an explanation. Nothing's random. Nothing happened by chance, and people didn't understand waterborne viruses that well and everything. And so you create kind of this exaggerated myth that is it's so close, it's like tuning into this has something to do with water, and then it also, then there's a reason assigned, which is usually, oh, you haven't been generous enough or something like that. Here's what you've been doing wrong, and this is why the ghost alligator came for you. So they do this cleansing thing. I think they offer some like actual remedy, different teas and stuff like that as well. And then prescribe like giving some possessions away. And so it also like triggers. So it's for the community, then it's like, well, they don't need to be stressing out about getting this random illness because they're doing everything right in accordance with, with the cultural laws and everything, whereas and then the people that were impacted by the illness, they then paid their penance or whatever. So like, okay, you know, water under the bridge. They learned their lesson, and so it kind of resolves everything. And it's sort of a beautiful, interesting thing in a lot of ways. That to create stories that make an impression that also lead to different behaviors and being aware of things and trying to explain things. And at the same time, it's still like, yeah, but a water filter is way better. you know. And so,
but we get both, though. We get to have both Halloween and filtered water to drink during our trick-or-treating, unless you're wearing a morph suit, because you can't eat or drink anything through these.
Yeah, well, that's what I thought about with Halloween, because Halloween's origins were way more serious and way more dogmatic, and then there was like lots of dogma against Halloween too. And now that it's just like playful and no one takes it that seriously, it's like, yeah, that's the way things like that should be. Like traditions should be more playful. How about like lots more fun, lots more dressing up kids in costumes and like being jolly and merry, and less like burning women because you think they're like evil or something.
Because they can do math.
Yeah.
Or because they read a word out of a book.
Did you... So I actually didn't know, because I'd heard about the Salem witch trials and stuff, and I didn't realize how many... I guess witch trials still happen today, and there's countries that there's like 500 executions for witchcraft a year or whatever. And
damn. Which one would surprise us the most? Do you know? Like, is it? I'm not saying India is one, but is there a country as
one
big
in
as
East Africa where I got that fun little tidbit from, but I can't remember specifically the name of it. But what I didn't know was that there's a period of time when like hundreds of thousands of people were executed for witchcraft.
Damn, back when that was the world population then.
Yeah.
There was only 100,000 people.
Yeah,
and then there's 100,000 people being executed.
I think it came to a head in like the 1500s, because so it was, yeah, I think the Celtic Christianity started taking over some Celtic traditions, and then what happened was, so it was like the story that Manvir shared with me. That's what a lot of these old like witchcraft type things seemed like, you know, like modern day like shamans and stuff are, and so there's I'm blanking.
Go-kart. There's a trampoline. There's a man in a hat, and he's real angry.
Well,
is there any of those?
Around the same time, so they had started cracking down on witchcraft, which at first, so it was like, well, there's white magic and black magic, and you can do like the
healing
good kind of
and
magic
damage.
And but you can't do the bad and if you do the dark magic, there's gonna be like they would fine people, which that's kind of hilarious if you like really believe someone's like cursing you or whatever, and you're like, hey, well, that's gonna cost you a chicken.
Have you seen The Dragon Prince on Netflix?
No.
So I was just thinking about its use of magic, and it takes place in this kind of mystical world where there's elves and forest enchanted beings that use magic, and then humans don't have the ability to use magic. But there's a select few that use dark magic, and what dark magic is in this world is you suck the life out of other beings to do your spells. So it doesn't mean that the spell is always causing harm. Like you can cast a healing spell, but you have to like take the squirrel and like just kill it, and then you've absorbed its life force and channeled that. So I'm thinking of what the definition of dark magic is in these.
Well, later on, once they started spreading rumors, there was like, so basically what happened was like light and dark magic was just how they understood healers. And it was, so it'd be like you went to a doctor, and if you thought they did a good job, then they just did the white magic. If you thought they did a bad job or you died or whatever, then they did black magic. It was a very outcome bias kind of.
Oh, okay.
And so like basically, so it was a high pressure job. Like basically, if you failed, you.
What if they killed one of your enemies? Like, what if your enemy goes to get a foot looked at, and then the doctor kills them with too many leeches? You're like, he just did white magic because he killed Ed.
Yeah,
and Ed never gave back my lawnmower.
Well, it was all pretty subjective, and it wasn't just witchcraft. Wasn't just all like healers. It was also, there was also like social aspects of it, of like your neighbor would do something you didn't like, and you'd be like, I think they're a witch. And then you'd like take them to court. Like I think that's where the drowning thing originally came from, was the what is it? The Code of Hammurabi. Have you ever heard of that?
I didn't know that's the name. No, but I love the logic behind it, where it's like, if you're a witch, then when we push you off the cliff, you'll just fly to safety, in which you will know you're a witch, and then you'll report back here for punishment. And if you fall to your death, then you die a good Christian death. Yeah. So it's win-win.
Yeah, and I think like in this Code of Hammurabi, it had a little more to do with like you had to go under for a certain amount of time. So I think some people did survive. Basically, like if you could hold your breath long enough, you were good. But because there was also, and I think you didn't get accused as much, because I think if they survive, if you accused, so we're neighbors, and I'm like, fucking Ramin never returned my leaf blower, I think he's a witch. And what that means is like, if you're a witch, then you die and I get all of your property. But if you aren't a witch, then they kill me, you get my property.
So that's Hammurabi. That's cool.
Yeah. The Code of Hammurabi, which I hadn't looked at in years, but it's a fascinating thing to look at, because it's the first like really well documented organized religion. It was pretty early on in the written language. It started off with like mostly accounting and like a way of keeping track of crops and such.
Boring.
And then eventually it got co-opted by religion, and this Code of Hammurabi, it was a lot of the early foundation for modern religions, and just like a bit more barbaric, which is a high bar to get over. But so
the sheer creativity of the torture, stuff that even like as a 5-year-old you don't come up with.
But so what happened was, it was turning, the Christian influence was turning against witchcraft, taking it more seriously, starting to prosecute it, and then the Black Plague came along. All these things through time, it's like there's so many times that it's connected to disease, and just trying to explain disease, and like victim blaming and assigning agency to, the chaos of it, not understanding germ theory and stuff. And so,
who are the witches now? Because one could make an argument that we have a witch hunt now.
Yeah, that's well, you certainly could.
I'm not making it though.
I absolutely will. It's a similar thing happening with like making up stories of like mad scientists plotting against you, or like Bill Gates being this warlock that's trying to commit genocide against everyone because he wants people to be vaccinated and stuff. But there's in modern we can use out-group example so that people feel less attached. And like for the listeners that are like, but Bill Gates is trying to commit genocide. All right, I'll make it against other people so you don't take it personally. This happened during the Ebola outbreak. Was they were like creating tents and stuff to treat people for Ebola, and then some people started spreading rumors that it was often outsiders that would come in and started spreading rumors in the locals to destabilize things, that was like they were tricking people into these tents. That's why some people weren't coming out, because people would go if they were like on their last leg trying to get help, and not everyone would be able to recover. And when they didn't, it was because they actually tricked them in there to kill them. That's what they're doing in there. There was a time when a whole hospital got overran by a bunch of like protesters, basically, that killed a bunch of doctors and nurses because they thought they were like plotting against them and everything. So yeah, this stuff absolutely still happens today.
So the witches were more seen as the people doing stuff.
Yeah. So
which doing stuff is such a broad term, but I mean, like, yeah, if you're a doctor, you're also a witch.
Yeah. And so when things really ramped up, it was during the Black Plague. And that's when, like, you did not want to be a doctor during the Black Plague, and because you were under heavy scrutiny all the time. But at the time, men and women were equally witches. There was no such thing as like a warlock for men. It was like a respected profession to be a witch. And
warlock always sounded stupid compared to witch.
Yeah.
Wizard, I guess, kind of cool, but
Wizard's
like
cool.
when you hear of warlock as the male witch, you're like, oh, it's like Ken. Barbie is like got everything. Barbie's got like a billion careers, different cars, and then Ken sometimes is with her on vacation.
Yeah, and so that's during the Black Plague is when things went crazy, because people when a chaotic situation happens, that's when people become like quite a bit more dogmatic and spiritual. Usually there's like desperation makes people a bit more prone to superstition, and then so everything just kind of came
just
to
a little
a head at the same time. And then there was some like, I think it was called The Witch Hammer or something like that. Hammer of the Witch. It was some witch hunting book that, and maybe that was a different guy that wrote that, but there was one huge book that was really, really impactful, and the guy that wrote it happened to be just insanely misogynist. And basically that's when most witchcraft became associated with females. And basically he made the case that essentially every woman is a witch, and they're just like a necessary evil that we gotta like put up with. You gotta be born from something, but you gotta keep like a really close eye on these women. And actually before this time, it was like before these Middle Ages, there was a lot more equality than people would think. Like women had stronger like land rights than men did and stuff at this.
So it's been a wavy ride then, because you sometimes think of women's rights as like being this upward slope, but yeah, maybe it was like, oh, we went backwards 10 years, whoops, we went backwards 500 years, whoops.
Yeah, that can happen a lot. And if you look at just hunter-gatherer societies, like my friend Herman Poncer, who's this great anthropologist at Duke University, he studies hunter-gatherers.
Go
like
Deers.
These Hootie people.
Or whatever their team is.
Are they called Deers?
I don't know. It's just Duke. I wanted to say the team, but I came in too late because the Morph Suit. I'm blaming all the timing issues on the Morph Suit. But yeah, go Duke Deers. Let's go to state this year.
So it's not that like women and men or whatever in these communities are necessarily considered equal. It's not like a way in which things are discussed, but certainly like a man can't tell a woman what to do and a woman can't tell a man what to do. Like anyone can make their own case for whatever.
It's like Will and Jada Smith.
Yeah,
I'm not responsible for my wife's happiness. She's not responsible for my happiness. We are true A-listers, superstars, independent, who are together.
Yeah, exactly. There's no prescribed in those communities. There's no prescribed like women are property or something like anything like that. So I do think that agriculture and the accumulation of resources started flipping the tables and started.
That's what I hear from everywhere. Yeah.
But it went up and down quite a bit. So during this time. This is when things got really horrific. Like, if I don't know, I didn't do a ton of research, but in the bit of research that I did on this, it seemed like if this is maybe this was the single worst time to be a woman, because.
During the Black Plague?
During the Black Plague, in these Middle Ages, there was like a span of like of 100 years or so where these witch hunts were happening, where they killed like 100,000, hundreds of thousands of women. I think like 20% of the witches were men that were executed, but they tortured like way more. And the thing was the tests to see if you were a witch, there was like a lot of inspections and stuff, and it was an impossible situation. Basically, they'd be like, well, witches have a small third nipple for milking little demons, of course. And so you need to inspect them like everywhere for this weird third nipple, which they'd just like find a mole or whatever and be like, there it is. And so then women would start like cutting their moles or whatever off so that they wouldn't be accused of being a witch. And they'd be like, oh, scar tissue. Oh, who's hiding that they're a witch? And then if they didn't find anything, sometimes they would just poke women with needles, like cover their whole body in needles, and then when there's a spot that they poked that they didn't react to, they'd be like, must be scar tissue, that's why you didn't flinch when we stabbed you with that needle. Damn. Witch. So there's just like no getting out of it, and no one could say anything about it. If anyone was
if they had kids? If they had kids, were their kids allowed to live, or were they like, these are witch kids, we got to get rid of them?
Oh, I don't know. That's a good,
feels like the kids
really
would be, or at least the daughters would probably be inspected. I kind of wonder how much damage they actually would do.
Well, they also thought it was like, so I don't think they thought you were born a witch. I thought they thought it was like a choice. I think that was part of like the religious debates of like, well, if God didn't like witches, why do you make witches? And then people are like, well, because God gave us free will, and so if you choose to be a witch, you're acting against God. And
did you ever hear back in Austin, Seth Cockfield had a joke about like God is weird, like he's like, I'm gonna make this place called hell to put all the bad people, now to go make some bad people.
Yeah. And so that was, some of the philosophical debates going on at that time, and then they had, so I think it was so it was even kind of more horrifying than that. So there was the torture that would happen if you were accused of, and everyone would confess eventually because they would do horrific tortures and tell people what to say and promise to stop torturing them if they said whatever, and then they'd eventually say the thing, and then they'd kill them or torture them anyway. And like, again, way more evil than whatever they thought like evil witches were doing, which they thought like it was funny too, because they would just assign a lot of chaos. Basically, if your cow, like if you had livestock die, it'd be like, witches can hit your cow with a lightning bolt from miles away. That's a witch for you. Does someone have it in for you? You had a cow die unexpectedly? Must be a witch.
So what about high class women? Were they protected? Like if someone?
Oh, I'm sure.
Okay, so it was mainly killing the lower class, because like by that logic, anyone could. It feels like all the women would just be gone.
Well, and then then
you would have this like utopian perfect society that would go spacefaring the next day.
Well, you had to keep an eye out, because anyone could be a witch, because you'd get powers by, I think some people thought you'd get powers by having sex with a demon. Now here's the thing, that's like the real problem with that was the guy that wrote this book. He was like, well, women are really gossipy. And so like if a woman does have sex with a demon and gets all these powers, like the real issue is she's not going to keep it to herself. She's going to blab to her friends about it. You know how women are. And then those women are going to have sex with demons. And then the witches will just keep on proliferating. And so that's when witch fever was at its most hysteric period of time. I was just like, we got to stop this stuff from spreading. And then confirmation bias, you would start seeing cues of like, oh, there's two women talking to one another. What are they up to? Witchcraft? And so like females couldn't even have friends. Like you couldn't even be friends with other females for fear of like being seen conspiring with another female.
Did it fizzle out, or did all this come to a stop one day?
Yeah, I think there was just like some eventual kings or emperors or whatever that just kind of put an end to like, hey, we gotta stop. You can't just
thine declare no more forth thy doth of witchcraft in thy name of thine Lord's manor field. You ever read Old English? You're like, I don't know any of these letters or what the sentence structure is, but it's English, I guess. And we just speak this ultra bastardized, like upon bastardized version of it. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is. It is amazing the way that language evolves. It makes us evolve. But yeah, I think that period of time lasted for like 300 years where shit got real crazy. Like if you were a woman, you could be accused of being a witch at any time. Because there's
I was going to say it's the epitome, it's the Michael Jordan of worst times of humanity. Because whenever someone's complaining about now, it's like, well, think about back then. If it was during the Black Plague, would you rather be alive then?
Yeah.
Like people always bring up the Black Plague as just the Michael Jordan of the worst time in history.
It was an absolutely brutal time. There was also like some people would, like, so I guess you could still, like, some people would try to be in the good graces. Like Nostradamus was always like in fear of being accused of witchcraft because he made
because he predicted the future every 5 seconds.
Yeah, but he made sure to like be in good with the church and like say good things about the church and worked with them he was a really popular writer, and so he was like the celebrity like spreader of Christianity, even though I don't think he was like terribly Christian himself, but he just didn't want to be accused of being a witch probably. But I think he like fucked around with some actual witchcraft, because there was like a weird, like the flying around on a broom stuff came around that time. They thought they thought that you'd rub the ointment of a child on a broom and then you could fly around.
What is the ointment of a child? Just child like smash?
I think you smash a child and turn
so
them
it's got
into
all the
ointment.
everything's in it then. It's not just one fluid. Gotcha.
Well,
Mixed
I don't know what the recipe was. But you'd have to think like there's probably some people that tried it, you know, like a lot of people really believed these things were true. I mean, imagine if you could use the ointment of a child to like on a broomstick and then actually fly around on a broom.
That'd be cool. If the kid was already dead and maybe hopefully it signed its body away for that purpose specifically. Yeah. I met the child. I took it to Disney Galaxy's Edge theme park.
Yeah, and then we turned him into broom fuel.
Yeah, I would give up my ointment for that kid. Yeah. If I was terminally ill, I would give up a week of my life just to have that kid have the broomstick. No more, but less.
But yeah, there would have had to have been people that tried to get into witchcraft because they believed they were like, fuck, well, I want to fly around on a broom, right? Like,
yeah, and it's before airplanes. It's next level convenient.
Can you imagine before libraries too, like trying to figure out how to turn a kid into ointment? Like, first off, you gotta learn how to make ointment, and then like what ingredients can be replaced for like kid fat or whatever you put in there, and then you rub it all over a broomstick and like you're just holding it between your legs like, okay, magic words, or how do you steer this thing? You just murdered a child and smashed him to bits, turned him to ointment, rubbed him on a stick, and now this stick doesn't fly. That's a embarrassing day. Or you think you got the recipe wrong.
It should have worked. I learned it from a guy, and that's the only form of information these days, just learning it from another person.
That would be a tough police interrogation too, I feel like so what did you do? I thought I could fly on a stick if I turned a child into ointment and rubbed it on it. As a whole, but like honestly, not into kid killing. I'm more into broom flying, and it was just like a necessary evil. Embarrassed about the whole situation. Apologies to the family.
I'm still going to have to write you a ticket, and you are going to have to appear in the courthouse at the center of town. There's no way of us tracking you or anything. So I'm going to go die of the Black Plague too. And then he died of the Black Plague. And
yeah, I'm just going to go scoot out of here and go die of the Black Plague. That's probably how. I'm sure that's how some people said goodbye during the Black Plague.
I can't wait, or I won't be here for it, but it's fun to think about how they're going to make fun of our era right now. Like, I'm going to go answer my emails and then record my podcast and get COVID. Oh, social media feed is active today. This one got more likes than the other one. Yeah.
I'm going to spend my whole life looking at a glowing rectangle in my hand.
Oh, yeah. And it's real, damn it.
It is.
It's a real place.
Yeah. So yeah, there's another thing that interests me that I don't know anything about is how these, so like things like, is that the origins of zombies? Like maybe, you open up you go grave digging, a thing's squirming around. You're like, that's still alive. I guess things come back to life sometimes. So your hair keeps growing and stuff after you die. And I don't think people know that.
What a mess down there. Like there's all this effort to pretty someone up and have a nice casket. And it's just a mess.
It really,
it's a stew of hair and trapped gas and worms.
I mean, it's especially awful because if you just bury someone not in a casket, like, nature will do its thing in pretty good time. You're going to have just a skeleton. But I imagine You just have something in a somewhat airtight casket and not as much bugs and everything else can get in. Oof. Things must get crazy.
Nature doing its thing boils down to, oh, are you going to use that? Are you finished eating that? No. And then it just like everything is going to be used and manipulated for the thing that is in motion. Otherwise it's not going to just stay there because you want it to stay there.
Yeah.
All the nature is going to just, oh, I'll use that. You're not going to eat that.
Yeah. I mean, until not too long ago, like there was no such thing as waste, really. I mean, there'd be waste based from like context. It's not like
no plastic. You mean
some like deer that shits or something like that. It's not like to that it's waste, but to something else that's like its whole life, a meal, it's fertilizer, it all gets used in like a pretty short order. It all doesn't just get used, it all gets fought over.
Oh yeah, multiple buyers. It's a seller's market, baby. There's always people putting more than asking price. Asking price is you come take it. And then, the actual price is you got to fight off these other people.
When nothing else wants it, then something figures out a way to make it its thing. It's like, no, nothing's eating this eucalyptus? All right, I'll be a fucking koala bear and just digest poison while sleeping for 23 hours a day.
I'll use that time to become extra cute so that they keep me alive from cuteness.
But I think that, I've thought, well, one, spiders is an easy kind of connection to make, which is
creepiness.
Yeah, it's creepiness, and there would have been a lot of like poisonous insects and things like that throughout our evolutionary history, even pre-human, that our primate ancestors would have had to would have created an aversion, psychological aversion from better safe than sorry, keep away from a crawly thing that looks like this. And so that's, that makes sense that's in Halloween. Blood's a big part. I mean, if you're bleeding, one, that's like disease and contagion, but also like something's gone wrong when there's blood.
Oh yeah.
There's blood.
And instantly. And I think the reason the color red is, we use it for stop, for danger, attention, code red. It's because it's blood. If we had green blood, then green would be the like alert color. But green represents everything's all good. Go. You've been approved. Green light. But red is like the danger color.
Actually, because green exit signs and stuff are green in other cultures. In other countries.
Maybe because it's safe. So they're playing the safe route. Like if you follow this light, you'll be safe.
Yeah.
But then the other ones, it's like follow this light and remind you of danger.
Yeah.
That's a weird one. Stoplights, though.
Yeah.
The reason, because it'd be so weird if they were green.
Blood, fire. Yeah, all dangerous things. But like rosy, like a berry red, that's a nice one. You want to evolve like nice rosy colored cheeks, or just like you go into estrus and develop a huge, big red baboon ass.
Is that what estrus is called?
Yeah.
When you develop redness on the ass?
Yeah, like you're near ovulating.
Oh, nice.
And yeah. Oh, have you ever seen one of those big red baboon asses? Woo!
Of course. I think one time I was making a poster for you like forever ago.
Oh, yeah.
I think you mentioned the idea of having a baboon, so I was like looking up baboon asses on there.
Yeah.
And there was quite a few.
Oh, so sexy.
It's crazy what we can make our Google images or Bing images pull up. Like it is this magic thing, like conjure up an image of anything I want.
Yeah.
And you just don't think about it until, Baboon Ass, and there it is.
Yeah.
More than you can eat. In one night.
What's the other? Oh yeah, then eyeballs, like that's the Halloween thing when you're a kid. Did you do that? Like put your
the spaghetti guts, the eyeball egg.
Yeah, the skinning the grapes. Like what wonderful parents to take the time to skin grapes just to like terrify their kids. Like, I'm not just gonna put grapes in, I'm gonna peel a grape just to scare the shit out of my child. So thoughtful.
I remember not being afraid that it was eyeballs, but that whatever it was, I didn't want to touch it because my hands would smell like it. Because if it's like eggs and vinegar or something, I don't want to have vinegary, eggy hands. But I still did it. But I was like, God damn it. I know it's not eyeballs. They would arrest you.
Yeah.
But I am hearing things about kidnappings and creeps. Because I think the 90s kids were the first kids to hear about child predators and kidnappers, and don't get in that car if they're offering you candy. I think maybe 80s, 90s, that was the first.
Well, that was
wave.
That was the candy hysteria too. We lived through the great candy panic of like, there's razor blades in the candy bars and stuff. It's a thing that actually never happened, but
not even once.
I don't think so. Actually,
damn, it does seem very bad.
The sad truth of it is that the instances of it happening was like parents poisoning their children, like just like a couple crazy people that decided
so they could go to more concerts or something.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's understandable.
But it wasn't. But there's like no evidence that there was ever actually like blades and candy or anything like that. That was just rumors that got real out of control, so much so that I remember, I think there was at least 1, if not 2 years where I had all of my candy x-rayed. My mom worked at a clinic, so she had the candy x-ray hookup. But there's a period of time where they're like, yep, bring your candy in, we'll x-ray it. It's like, we'll put a little bit of radiation in your candy to make sure that a completely insane thing that's never happened and never really would. I mean, someone could put a blade or drugs or something in candy, but like, worse was all of the radiation that you put into the candy, looking for the one crazy person in the entire country that would do something like that.
We were pretty lax. It was more if the wrapper didn't look like it was tampered with, it's probably fine.
Yeah.
Plus, you remember every house you go to. Like, what are they going to do?
Yeah.
Go hide in that house?
Yeah, I don't think you get away with it for it's like, okay, it's a 2-block radius from...
Unless you planted it in one of those bowls that people leave out and they say, take 2, please, and
you put it in someone else's.
You'd have to be truly evil because you're causing damage and you're not even there. Like, you're just causing...
Not even for fucking flying fuel ointment, just for like no fucking reason whatsoever. But to relieve everyone, that's not a thing that happened. That was just like a weird rumor that got started. And
good luck trying it now with all the forensic stuff.
Oh yeah.
Like they'll know everything, and whether you had COVID or whether you were in contact with someone that had COVID within that week.
Yeah.
So you're not even going to poison us.
Oh man, speaking of COVID, this is like, I would have more sympathy for people's like masks. Like if they had to wear what we're wearing right now, I'd be like, yeah, I get it. Maybe it's not worth it.
Actually, this would be fun. I would be a what are these called again? Morph suits?
I don't know.
Yeah, I would be pro Morph Suit.
You'd be pro Morph Suit for the next pandemic. We all wear these. I think they need to work on, like, my nose doesn't have a lot of room. My nose is like super crushed in. How is your nose feeling?
Nose is all right. I'd prefer anything but this, but what about your beard? Is your beard like kind of tucked in?
I guess. Can you see it? I I can't see well enough.
No, I can't see at all.
I think it looks good. I was thinking if we did a part 2, this is before I put this thing on and realized how uncomfortable it was. But I was thinking if we did a part 2, I would cut a hole for the beard, which I might still do just for a picture. These things, I will say, these things look fantastic, and
they're pro quality.
Their pro quality was $30.
Mm-hmm.
You just need a friend to help you zip it up, and
skin tight. It's like I'm a visionary and you're a void, but it's very, what's it called? The Vision? Is that the name? No, Vision is Marvel. Mr. Manhattan. Dr. Manhattan. That's the guy.
Oh, yeah.
The blue guy from Watchmen.
Yeah. Yeah,
Blue
I
Man
think you'd want to also, if you're going to order one of these, like order a cup as well, because there's a lot of, it really makes the shapes kind of...
Yeah, your dick is available to everybody.
It draws a lot of attention.
Yeah, it carves out like there's nothing left to the imagination. Even when you're looking at the dick directly, there's like a little left to the imagination. But on this, it's like it makes it look even more like what it looks like.
there's it is funny the how much a tradition can change over time if you've been listening thus far to some of these histories of how this happened, of like going from, I like to imagine some of the early dressing up was like also kids trying to, like poor kids trying to get the free food left out and like dressing up like the dead because people were like inside scared. That's part of why they'd like leave the offering on the and then hunker down and be like, oh. So I think maybe some kids would just dress up and be like, ooh, I'm a ghost, and just get a bunch of free food. But to go from all the way from that to now, it's like now the sexy Halloween costumes.
When was that invented? After like 1960?
I think
50s? Feels like it's a 60s thing.
I think sexy Halloween costumes have been around for a while. I think there is always some boundary pushing there in modern years. Since Halloween started becoming more playful. I mean, there was still...
Have you ever done a sexy costume? Other than these ones?
No, I have. Have you done a sexy costume?
I only did once. Me and my roommate went as sorority girls with like really tight shorts and like tight everything. But I mean, of course, the sexiness is subjective. But in that, like you're trying to look that way, then yeah, that counts. But that's more of a funny one too, because
Yeah, I'm glad that. Like, imagine if your face was like this and you could and your body was like this and you could stretch it. Like, actually, that'd be kind of cool. Just really don't like
you just stretch your body?
Yeah, if you could just
It's all right, I guess. I could take it or leave it. I don't know what I would do with it. What would I do with body stretching? I would reach my keys a little bit easier if it fell under the couch.
Yeah, I guess if everyone could body stretch, there wouldn't be anything interesting about it. But if just you could body stretch and you'd be like, oh, hey, how's it going? Like, anyone have any special hidden talents or anything? Oh, I have one. Yoink. Like, what's it for? It's for exactly what I just showed you. Why does everything need to have utility?
The worthless mutants of X-Men. What about werewolves? Where did that come from? You think just some guy with rabies?
Well, so black cats were, I mean, rabies would have been, I actually do think it was, connected to rabies, because you would become like
feral.
I mean, rabies is fucking crazy because you can't swallow.
Oh, that's where the foam comes from.
Yeah, you can't swallow. and it's just like it forces cortisol to just be raging through your body.
I hate cortisol. Least favorite hormone. But it saves lives sometimes.
It used to anyway. Now it just gets us in trouble.
Yeah, it's the appendix of the hormones.
It really is.
It truly, truly is.
So you get rabies. I mean, like you can catch rabies before you've actually like been infected by it, but once you got it, fucking see you later. It's like,
wait, say that again. You can catch it before you're infected.
Like if you get bit by something, you can go and get treated before symptoms occur. Like once you're rabies symptomatic, you don't have much longer to live.
Oh yeah, it's one of those ones. Yeah, once past that tipping point, it's over.
Yeah. And so if you get bit by a rabid beaver, definitely go and like get checked out.
Do you die or you just become a terrible feral criminal?
I think you die.
Because can you stay alive and just foam at the mouth and eat raw meat and live in the jungle? Or you eventually die? So
you can't swallow. And you can't really sleep because of the cortisol. So you're exhausted, but also so you're not sleeping, so you can't like think clearly. And then you're like you're ramped up. You can't swallow, so you're fucking foaming, and you just get like more and more fucking aggressive, and things get crazy. So yeah, I think the werewolf thing is a dog, and then I wonder what came first, because definitely the black cat, the witches turn into black cats and transport around, or can go around in the night as black cats or whatever. That's the thing that's been around for a long time, but I don't know what's older between that and werewolf stuff. And again, this isn't like, I haven't talked with a bunch of scientists about this stuff or anything. This is like little bits of watching some videos and Wikipedia and fooling around on the internet, doing a bit of research and thinking about things. So I wouldn't take any of this stuff too seriously. If we do a part 2, do you want to do a second Halloween one with different?
I'll do a whole like 9-episode arc of the Morph Suit. I'm weirdly okay with uncomfortable things just when they're different. Where it's like, are you having a good time in the suit? Like, no, I'm having a terrible time. I hate the suit. Do you want to do 10 episodes in it? Yes.
My nose being crunched is the worst thing about it for sure. But I was thinking if we did a different one. The main thing is I can't read. So
different costume, you mean?
Yeah, I was thinking maybe different costumes.
I could do that Cuphead one, or I could even get another one from the dollar store.
Yeah. If you did a whatever costume you desire, and then I'll wear something, because then we could do this morbid curiosity scale that I just had this guy Colton Scratner on, and it's really good. It's like 26 questions. It's a perfect amount for one episode, and it's all about it's in also.
Do you click or not? And I'm gonna say I click.
And then, but it's also so we'll be talking about a little bit of the psychology of why people like haunted houses and horror movies and stuff like that. Like why, if you step back from it and go, why the fuck would people want to be scared ever? Why would you put yourself in a scary? Being scared is to keep you away from danger. Why would you add units of scared to your life for any reason? And so that's a paradox that kind of needs to be explained. And there's some pretty cool research about it. So I thought,
is it because of the control? Is that what it boils down to? I mean, we'll unpack it later, but
that's one.
I was thinking about kink, and I'm not even that familiar with the world of kink directly, but I've like
you do everything. What was the episode that you said?
Oh yeah, right. Okay, so I've done everything. I've had 10 ball gags up my ass, 2 up my nose, 1 in the mouth, keeping it traditional.
Why did you?
But someone was on an episode of whatever podcast I was listening to. I have no idea which podcast it was at this point, but they were talking about being in the world of kink and rough sex and the power of living traumatic experiences with a safe word, and like how something rewired in their brain when they got to use the safe word, because it's like you revisit a traumatic memory and you get to stop time and you get to process it in your own way or something like that. This is just one person's experience, but it always stuck with me. It's like, oh, that's why a lot of people like that world and the safe word, because it's like, okay, it's danger, but I know I'm in control and it's close to,
It's one of the big aspects. Yes, you're right on the nose. That is one of the big aspects. There's several of them. They're all super fascinating.
And tune in to find out, because I'm not gonna reveal the other ones on this.
Yeah.
Even though I've done everything.
Oh, last little. What's the thing? Oh, vampires. I think that's the last one that we're. Well, there's ghouls and goblins and stuff. I don't know much about ghouls and goblins, but. And not that I know much about any of this.
They're pretty
stuff.
vague, right? Like when we think of a witch, a werewolf, and all that, but a ghoul and a goblin, it's like that's kind of just monstery.
Yeah. I also like that, like through time, all of these things were like scary realities. Like the stories that got out of hand then became like what people thought were actually things that existed, and now it's just like what we do for entertain, like Lord of the Rings or whatever.
Yeah.
Like they used to.
It was a more magical world.
Yeah, it was.
Not saying it's better, but like what magic do we have that's the equivalent when you think about it?
Movies, really.
But we know that it's an actor and lights and stuff. I'm saying like they had a connection to like, oh, the dead are going to come to our house. We better leave food for the dead. They came back. There's zombies. There's werewolves.
Yeah.
But we're like, no, we know it's a light. We know that actor. We've seen his Instagram. We know what his kid looks like. It's just...
just every time there's a lightning storm, you're like, who pissed off the witch around here? Did we get the wrong witch? Are we killing... not enough witches? Do we need to kill less of them? We know it has something just to be sure.
You know who did really well? Mary Shelley, because Frankenstein is in that whole gang of monsters, but that's a recent one.
Ooh.
So mummies are ancient, werewolves ancient, witches ancient. Yeah. What's the other one? Black cats, all that. But then Frankenstein, it's like you get to be part of the Breakfast Club because you're a really cool story.
Yeah. Do
Frankenstein's monster.
That is interesting. I wonder if another last thought of the evolution of things, because I can't figure out what Frankenstein's would be, but I guess it's just new. But I think I never thought this before COVID, but I wonder if much like spiders or mummies or zombies or whatever, is this exaggerated way in which we thought about actual fears or death or that sort of thing. I do wonder if bats, but rats aren't a part of Halloween. Oh, I guess they sort of are. I mean, you'll throw a couple of rats in a haunted house. But bats are a major
but if
player.
they were missing, you wouldn't be like, where are the rats? This isn't a haunted house.
Yeah.
But if there's no bats, then you're like, where's the bats?
But bats, rats, and primates are the three main intermediary species for zoonosis for humans. And that was probably always the case. So zoonosis, the disease spreading from species to species.
Oh, right. We talked about that last time.
So unlike like mosquito, which is just like a vector, like taking malaria from me and then giving it to you, this is like a different species giving you a virus. And So, and bats are, and people eat bats sometimes. I think that's where they think that's where, was it Ebola? I think Ebola maybe originated from that, or
and Contagion, the movie.
Some of the early, yeah. So it happens, but I wonder if that had something to do with the evolution of the story of vampires as well. Was just this a story that you make up about, much like the ghost alligator thing in that tribe. You make up some scary thing about bats so you don't eat the things, or you stay away from them, or whatever.
And maybe it was in Transylvania.
Well, it does seem
or
like
maybe just a guy wrote it in there.
A lot of these stories seem to have been about controlling children, along the way. And some of the things, it was like, you'd tell a scary story so that your kid would do whatever the hell you said, or do or not do the thing, so that they wouldn't get haunted or whatever else. But and then some people just never came to realize it as an adult, and then pass it on, and then some people take it more seriously than others.
Yeah, Christmas is like that too, a little, because you're scaring them. If you've been naughty, then you don't get toys, you get coal.
Right, exactly. I think a lot of that is in connection to teaching children. But
yeah, Easter you're safe. Easter you can do whatever. I think you still get the eggs.
Well, I think we could probably wrap up this one. Do you have, first off, okay, I got a good question for you. What's a candy to, because people are, at the time this is coming out, people are still planning their Halloween. What's a good candy to, like, knock everyone's socks off? You don't want to get the trick. You want kids to be like, oh, that's the house, they got the good stuff. I have one in mind.
Man, it's tough because some people might not like chocolate.
Yeah, but if it's balling,
I don't know about a knock it out of the park stuff, but I think it's always safe to go with the brand name favorites, the Snickers, the Reese's, the Milky Ways, the M&Ms, the fun size, and be generous with it. But
yeah,
it's a bad answer. I want to know the real answer. What's the answer?
Well, so personally, I like Nerds a lot, but if I'm like, okay, I'm gonna stock up, I'm gonna like give them something special, I think you go Pop Rocks.
Pop Rocks is really good.
Yeah.
I haven't had a Pop Rock in...
That's what I'm saying.
A Pop Rock? Years.
Or like a Fun Dip. I think Pop Rocks for sure, but something that's like, oh, that's
Fun
peculiar. Dip. Like,
Fun
no
Dip
one
is
gives
good.
fucking Fun Dip.
Fun Dip is a killer.
Yeah, that's a
answer.
Killer.
Yeah, I think I got B- on my answer.
There's got to be a few more like that. Put in the YouTube comments below if you think you can beat a Halloween candy. You're trying to crush it. You're trying to be like the one person in the neighborhood that has the bomb ass candy. If you think you got something in mind that beats either Pop Rocks or Fun Dip, put it in the comments below, because I think those are tough to beat.
Yeah, and the winner gets that candy if it costs less than $5.
One of these
you
days.
Pick the candy you get, and if we pick you as the winner, you get the thing you picked if it's less than $5 if I feel like sending it that day. It's good to offer a chocolate thing and a non-chocolate thing.
Yeah, I like that you offer the dumbest prizes and then set about quantifying and qualifying the already bad prize that people get. It's like, and then it turns out you might not actually get it, but don't hold us to any of this.
Yeah, always clarify that it's a chance to win. Give me $1,000 for a chance to win $1 billion.
Well, guys, we plug the heck out of our Patreon all the time, so I'm not going to give a whole 5-minute spiel on every episode, but if you want to check out why we're dressed like this, if you want to see the real Voids and Visionaries, you can at least check out the Patreon to see this without even subscribing. You can go and have a peek and see the Patreon characters, see why we're dressed up like this if you so desire. What I would like to hit you up for is a sweet-ass iTunes review. We've been getting some awesome ones lately. We have almost 300 ratings right now, which is not bad for only 6 months in. Let's see if we can double it this week. Why not? And if you want to... Ramin's going to be... Dude, you're actually pretty good at dancing in a morph costume. You got some real morph costume moves. For only having worn a morph costume for like 2 hours now, I think you really know what you're doing.
Yeah, maybe I can go to Central Park and make some good money. The Morph Suit guy, he's there every Tuesday. He used to be in the Blue Man group, but they kicked him out because he smoked too much.
I'm going to see if I can drink some water in this Morph Suit before we leave. Let's just see what happens. It works.
It works?
It works. Mine's black, though. Yours might look weird. The purple might look strange. I don't know. But
should I try it?
You could try it if you want. Yeah.
It's good content. I mean, you'll never get this anywhere else. You'll never get the Lincoln mug.
Oh man, I love
You'll never get the
Mind Under Matter podcast. This one time they were wearing a morph suit. They tried to drink water through it. It was crazy.
It went all over my lap. I didn't get any of it on my mouth. Or I got a little bit on my mouth. But it mostly just went on my dick.
Yeah, we just sort of waterboarded ourselves, but in a bloopery sort of way.
I've got nice lips now, though.
The bathroom was... it does look pretty funny.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, you guys are great. And thanks for listening. Until next time.
Keep on salivating, honeys. Ding.